human embryo from 3 different people. Stop and think about that. We talked a little bit in Bible study a year and a half or so ago about some of the studies they were doing that time. If you remember, I think it leaked out that they were doing it at that time, and then they said, "Oh well, we destroyed it. We're not doing anything like that." Well, it's for real. The other thing going on, merchants now. I'm talking about Visa, MasterCard, those type things. They're writing the logarithms. You know, I think it was just last week or week before I mentioned that China was starting to track purchases, specific purchases. Well, of course, the big thing going on now in the United States is gun control and ammo control. Visa and MasterCard are now tracking on their cards all purchases of guns and ammo. So people are being urged that have guns, wants guns or ammo, they're saying use cash. But so think about what's everything they're working on. They're going to get rid of your cash, right? And I've got another thing here talking about that. And the next item is called Ethereum. And Ethereum is a organization that has ties to blockchain. You remember me talking about blockchain and how that's the core thing that's starting stored to where nobody can get in and take it away. The problem with cryptocurrency is based on blockchain. That's how it works. That's why it works on a worldwide basis. You know, like if someone bought a cryptocurrency in Egypt, the people that's involved with that in the United States in that program, it's all updated immediately around the world in multiple places. That's the reason it can't be changed. That's the reason it's secure. It's secure because when a transaction takes place, it goes clear around the world instantly and is recorded in multiple places. So for someone to go in and change that data that was just recorded, they would have to go to all these multiple places in order to change the data to make it, and they can't do that. It's impossible to go to find all the places this is doing. That's this blockchain that we were been talking about. Well, the biggest problem with this has been, especially with the currency, is it's extremely uses a lot of energy, tremendous amount of electricity. In fact, what's the cryptocurrency everybody was talking about? Yeah, Bitcoin. Bitcoin itself uses more electricity than the entire country of New Zealand in a year's time. Stop and think about that. It's very energy inefficient. However, and that's one reason some of the governments and stuff haven't gone to it yet, it's because it uses too much electricity. Well, Ethereum says, and they're supposed to prove it this week, that they have perfected a way of using the currency and blockchain, and they're only using 10% of the energy that was used before. They've made it 90% more energy efficient. That's a big deal. The reason being, it opens the door where before one of the limiting factors was, well, you use too much electricity. Okay? Not now. It's starting getting to where it's affordable. And so you can watch for the cryptocurrencies to come on. Also under technology, China is now building a DNA database on the Uyghur children. And what reminded me was, do you remember, those of you that were in Bible study, when we talked about there was a genealogy group here in the United States, you send your sample in to track your DNA, and come to find out it was owned by a Chinese company and all their data was going to China. China has been for some time now, and that company was shut down. They were based out of Seattle, Washington. But it was a fact. They were sending all the DNA results on people here in the United States as we're sending stuff to them. It was going to China. China's building a DNA database. What they want to do, they want to have a DNA database on every person in the world that they can get to. And one of the reasons is that if they decide to go to some type of warfare, there would be a germ warfare. You could go to a biological warfare that would only affect certain DNAs. And that's the reason they're doing it. But now they're to the point now, it's just like on the, they want to get rid of the Uyghurs. I mean, they've been, you read about it all the time. They're in the process now of DNAing all their children. Every child is born, they have to have a blood sample. And they're storing that. Lithium batteries, you're hearing a lot about lithium batteries. These things are an ecological nightmare. I've been reading up on some. It's unbelievable. All this stuff that they're trying to push to go to electric cars and everything, everything's using lithium. And the reason using lithium is because they finally made batteries with lithium that's light enough that they can make an electric car. And we see it in a lot of things. The problem is the mining of the materials needed for these lithium batteries are tremendously toxic. And they're one of the worst polluters in the world. And now the other thing I come across, and I've known that for some time, but the thing I came across the other day, lithium batteries burn. You can't put them out. They don't know how to put a lithium fire out. There are several of them in some factories here in the United States still burning right now. It's been on fire for a while. Not large, okay? But wait, what are you going to do with all these batteries when you start taking them out of the cars and all this stuff? Well, right now they cannot control a fire, a lithium fire. If you have one here in Connersville, there's no one in Indiana or anywhere around this part of the country that they have to put it out. You can't. So there again, it's just the end that they want. They'll use all means to get there. It doesn't make any difference. They could care less about the damage to the economy, the damage to the ecology, whatever you have, as long as they're working towards the goal that they think is important. Here's the last thing on the technology, and two things. Many countries are at peace right now. There's not everybody at war. We've got some warring factions going on. But do you realize that 50% of all the research scientists in the world, now stop and think, 50% of all research scientists in the world are researching weapons and weapons manufacturing, means of weapons. Over half of all the research scientists in the world are involved in creating weapons. And through that, there was another part of this study, or it was the second study they pulled in. Those scientists are all in arms development. Right now, they estimate there's 4,000 pounds of explosives per person over the entire world. So you've got 2 tons of explosive on every person. That's how much is setting for use. And the countries are spending $1.92 trillion a year on weapon development. Just unbelievable figures. Okay, quickly here at home, abortion rights are starting to show up in the elections. And some of the states, Michigan has it on their ballot this year to say that Michigan will allow abortions, and it's a state constitutional right. Now, see, you got to remember, all that happened in the Supreme Court with Dodd was that it returned the determination on it back to the states. Okay? That's all that happened. They didn't do away with abortions. They just said, hey, each state can decide on their own. That's all it was done. That's why when they keep talking about that the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, it did that. All it did is give it back to the states to decide. California is trying to pass a bill making it legal for the state of California to take possession of a child that comes in for a transgender program, and the parents say, no, we don't want our child to do that. They're passing a law that the state will take over that child. The interesting thing is, it includes people out of state. If you were a parent that lived in Nevada, and your child made it over to California and wanted to go into a transgender program, and you went to bring that child home, the state's going to keep that child. You're not taking it home. Stop thinking about that. The other thing out there in California and that stuff now, I ran across this. I read a lot on agriculture. I get stuff every day on that, like several magazines and stuff. But I was reading on one farmer. They're talking about, they keep talking about there's not going to be food shortages. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. You're good. This was a California rice farmer. He normally, this guy sows the rice with an airplane. That's the way they do it out there. They flood the area, and then the airplane flies over and seeds it from the sky. Normally, this guy would do 42,000 acres a year. Wow. This year, he's done 7. And it's all because there's no water to flood the fields. Mm-hmm. So that's just one farmer, but that's occurring all across that valley out through there. What does the end times look like? Pastor sent me a thing today. You start seeing the society collapse. Pastor sent me a video of a young man in Chicago. Nice neighborhood. He's getting ready. I think, if I remember, if I watched it, I think he was checking on his mother or doing something for his mother. Nice neighborhood. He pulls up, got a nice SUV. Middle of the morning, van or this black SUV pulls up. Masked guys jump out, stick a gun in his face, take his gun, take his wallet and everything, threaten him. Anyhow, the end of the story was they left. Finally, the guy kind of put a arm hold or something on one. I think he knew a little karate or something, whatever. But he broke away, ran away. The cops show up shortly thereafter, find the vehicle these guys are in. Their supervisor tells them, don't arrest them. Leave them alone. No, the cops are not allowed to arrest them. And I think, Pastor, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they said there were 16 more instances in that area the same day. They believe probably by the same people. Not allowed to arrest them. Nice neighborhood. What it is, people in California, 1 in 6 people, 18% of their population reports that they have experienced violence in the past year. Stop thinking about that, 1 in 6. And the thing is, it's not these bad neighborhoods. Sure, you'll see fights and stuff in the homeless areas and stuff. Look, if you go back, just look at the movie stars and stuff that's been broken into this last year and been stuff stolen from. It's just, what does the future look like right now? Or what does society look like when it collapses? You're seeing it right in front of your eyes. You have no safety. Now, we're fortunate where we live, guaranteed. Because, I was talking to my nephew that was in here from New Orleans a couple of weeks ago. And I was asking him about violence down there. Talking about murders. We hear about Chicago and some of the big cities with murder rates and everything. He said, based on population, New Orleans has the highest murder rate in the country. But you don't hear anything about it because there's not that many every day. You hear the things out of Chicago every weekend. Excuse me. But that's what it looks like as society collapses. I'll point out here in a minute, I think somewhere I had it, in a study of 198 countries, which are basically all the UN countries, 107 right now have social unrest. Over half the countries in the world right now have social unrest. And if you get on the news, you can spend all time reading about it. A lot going on. Real quick, we'll go to the Ukraine, or European Union. Ukraine, they took some land back from Russia. I don't know where you picked up on that, a pretty large area. So what's Russia do? Russia shut down a nuclear reactor that's supplying electricity that will not be restarted. They started hitting electrical substations, and now they're bombing dams. They're going to put Europe on its knees. There's no doubt about it. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing. He may not be able to win on the ground, and I think the reason they're not winning on the ground is because the United States is there. We're directing that. Don't kid yourself. If you don't think the reason they've had some successes against the Russians is because the United States is on the ground directing it, using United States weapons. We've sent billions and billions of dollars of our top-line stuff over there, to the point that China moves or something else happens in the Mideast, we're not going to have enough stuff in stores to go to war with anybody else. So, but that's what's going on there. Putin and Xi Jinping are having a summit in Shanghai, I think today or tomorrow. Big deal. This will be the second time they've met within a year, and it's obvious that the things they're doing, they're working together. The other thing I picked up over there in Russia, Putin had somebody try to kill him. There was a bomb set off near his car. So there's some internal turmoil there. And of course, China's trying to control their internal turmoil by locking cities down until Xi Jinping gets through the next election. The EU is trying to make it a prison offense to go against their decree thermostat settings of 66 degrees this winter. 3 years in prison if you get caught if you get caught trying to heat your house warmer than 66 degrees. Not making this stuff up, guys. It's real. The thing of it is, the European mess, and they are in a tremendous mess. It's going to spill over here. It's going to come in and bite us, just like the economic thing that's falling apart in China is going to spill over here too. China's economy right now is in an absolute mess. They are overstretched. You heard me talking about what they were doing here several years in their housing market, trying to force people to buy houses and stuff. That's come back to bite them. It's like I saw a reading out of the Wall Street Journal yesterday. They estimate that the Chinese housing collapse is 100 times worse than what we went through in 2008. 100-fold worse. And the other thing is, China has major droughts going on through their breadbasket area, where their food comes from. And along with that, the lockdowns are still occurring, more lockdowns. Get this, they had a very large earthquake the other day. Had a 6.8 in Shangdao. Yeah, Shangdao had a 6.8 earthquake. They're on lockdown. They would not let the people out of their houses that were crumbling around them. And the way they do that is, they tell you to stay in the house. When you come out, they either arrest you, or you could get shot, or they'll just come up and lock your door. Back when that coronavirus started over there, they were going to apartment buildings and welding the doors shut to the apartment buildings. You might have 10,000 people in this apartment building. They went around and welded all the doors shut so you couldn't get out. That's the way they do it. If they tell you lockdown, they mean lockdown, and they enforce it. The other thing that's going on with China, they've got the drought going on. They've had to buy a lot of grain and stuff to try to make it through this winter. They don't have enough right now. They have their housing industry in collapse, and it's spilled over into the banks, and that's all coming apart. And the other thing that's happening is, you've heard me talk about the Brick Road Initiative, BRI. That's where they go to another country. We talked a little bit about that, and we'll build you a dam for electricity, and you pay us back, and et cetera, et cetera. Countries the worldwide economy is going down south in a handbasket pretty quick. These countries are not paying China back. Now, that would have been great for China if they didn't have the problems at home, because they end up owning the property that they have the mortgage on. The problem is now they don't have money to offset that. So it's a whole bunch of things coming together. One thing it shows that the China GDP at the first of the year was forecast at 5.5% growth. Right now, it's down to 2.7. So it's collapsing quickly. Mideast, real quick. No major things happened this last week. Word did come out that Iran can make a bomb. That's pretty much a given. There's something happened between the U.S. and Israel, and that the U.S. all of a sudden wants to buddy up with Israel again. I don't quite understand Biden and them. I don't, other than the talks failed. You know, Biden was going to stand up, pound on his chest, say we got a new thing with Iran. Iran kept dragging it out. I told you that last week. They're trying to drag it out to the elections because they don't want anything. At the same time, they're going ahead and putting their bomb together. So that's occurring. Iran's buying the very top, most modern Russian fighter jets. They just inked the deal. See, Putin went to visit. I was talking about that last week. Putin went to visit Iran, and since last week, it come out that Iran's buying the Su-35 and Sukhoi 35, which is a very modern, very efficient jet, and they're buying it. Kyrgyzstan is battling Tajikistan. That's going on, and we need to keep Bishop in our prayers. Albania has been encroaching on Armenia. Borders, there's been some border conflicts going on, and they've been warned not to pursue any further into Armenia. Problem we got now, you've heard me talking about before. All you got to do is turn around. Shiites and the Sunnis are all together battling somebody today. In this case here, you got Shiites battling the Sunnis. They're back at war with each other. Just never knows. Okay, Bishop, I'm right on time, man. So I'll hand it over to Bishop. Like I said, if there's anything that you all want more info on, just let me know. There's just a lot happening this last week.